Bitcoin is finally showing some technical signals that it could be bottoming. We're going to take a look at the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts and all the news driving the markets. Let's go. What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit that like button. As I said, there are a lot of technical indicators starting to turn up and show that Bitcoin could be forming a bottom. That does not mean that it has bottomed or seen its lowest prices. It just means that it's starting to form one and could be heading back up sooner than later. We're also going to review Ethereum and all the news. So right now, let's just dig right into the Bitcoin chart. Here we have the Bitcoin monthly chart. As you can see, we had this sort of topping candle here, a hanging man, some would call it a doji, and then the drop behind. We had a very similar pattern in March 2020, although this was a much more convincing reversal candle when it dropped down below 4,000. As you can see, it had a longer wick and a smaller body. We still have a pretty large body here and not the longest of wicks, but we do have a bit of precedence to see when we have a two candle pattern like this that we could go up afterwards, but make no mistake about it. If you were just looking at the monthly chart, you would be thinking that this was a sign of a bearish reversal. This candle showed some indecision. This candle confirms the bearish trend, and it's engulfing even the candles before. And so if you just were looking at monthly candles, things do not look potentially that bullish right now. But when you look at a monthly chart or something of this high time frame, it can take so long to play out or never play out at all. I talk about this all the time, so it's not something that's of major concern for me. Crypto happens at the speed of light, so looking at a monthly candle to determine what's likely to happen is very, very difficult, and the monthly will close tonight. I just wanted to give you that perspective. Now we'll take a look at the weekly chart. As you can see, I pulled some fibs last week. We have the black fibs from the lows around 3,800 last March, and then we have the red fibs from the lows of $9,813 last August of 2020. Now, you can see that on the red fibs that we just discussed from 98.13, we're struggling right here at the 50% retracement. That's not a fib level. 50% is called the Dow level and has been used in markets all the time, but it is not Fibonacci level. But you can see that we bounced off the 61.8%, right between the 61 and the 65, which would be called the golden pocket. That's where Bitcoin loves to end a move and head back the other way, both when it's going down and when it's going up. If you look at the black fibs, you can see that we're holding that 50% level, 1, 2, 3 weekly candles in a row that have wicked below it so far, but this is a brand new candle. That's from the move down from 3,800. Now, we have this candle right here that some would call an inverted hammer. If it was at a top, that would be a shooting star, would be a very bearish candle in theory. You had that long wick up and it would show that sellers took over, pushed price back down. But actually context matters tremendously and placement matters tremendously when you're talking about candlesticks. At the bottom of a move, this candle is actually considered bullish, and that requires confirmation from another bullish candle after. The thinking of that is that sellers continued to push down but got exhausted. Buyers made a bit of headway, and even though buyers weakened there at the end of the candle, we still saw that sellers were not able to advance price further. That means that selling is exhausting and buying interest is significant in this area. So now we got to look and see what happens on the next weekly candle. Let's drill down into the daily. Now on the daily, you can see that we are forming a symmetrical triangle here after the significant move down. Some would call that a bear pennant. It's a pretty wide triangle to be a bear pennant, but it could qualify as such. But if you look at it as more of a symmetrical triangle, then it's a bit agnostic as to which way it will head, and you wait until you see a definitive break to decide what the next move is likely to be. So a break above the descending resistance would mean that we're heading likely back up to this area around that 42,000, and a breakdown would mean we're likely headed back to around 30,000 and potentially lower if you believe it's a bear pennant and use this entire thing as your flagpole as a measure. We could be heading well down into the 20,000s with a break below that triangle. For now, on the daily chart, it's so clear to me we need to get above 41,986 before we really start talking about any significant reversals. Anything below that, this still continues to be generally bearish movement and some sort of consolidation. Now, this is one of the favorite indicators that people love from the past. This is MACD on the daily chart. This is actually using XBT, which is on BitMEX, but same thing as Bitcoin. You can see we're starting to get a cross up right here, the blue line crossing up above the darker line. That is a bullish signal. Also, you can see that MACD is completely bottomed out. It hasn't been this low in absolutely ages, basically ever, if you're looking at this chart. So MACD is completely bottomed out at a level we've never seen and is about to cross up. further. This is the histogram right here. You can see that when it's below this level here, that it tends to be bearish, and when it's above, it tends to be bullish. Well, it's about to cross the zero right now. You can barely even see that dot. So by tomorrow, this could be moving into positive territory. That would be a very good sign if you are a MACD trader. Now, also on the daily, of course, we have RSI, which I talk about all the time. We had this bullish divergence oversold, which is the greatest reversal signal in history in my mind, as long as you don't see hidden bearish divergence after, which we did. That was confirmed. But we have once again confirmed bullish divergence again, building up these bullish divergences coming out of oversold. As you know, once RSI hits oversold, you expect it to eventually get back to overbought, but it took a full year to make that cycle back to oversold this time. So hard to get too excited about it getting to overbought in the immediate future. Also, we have to watch. We have this high here. We're almost going to make a higher high if we go up, and we would still need price to eclipse 39,309 and ultimately 40,665 to not end up with another hidden bear div if this heads back down. That doesn't mean it has to close there today. It just means we need to see the trend continuing up on RSI and not see a definitive move down. But for now, it is encouraging to see that bullish divergence formed again and confirmed on the daily chart. Now, taking a look at the 12-hour, you can see that we also had a bull div here, which is not drawn. And then again, hidden bear div, and then bullish divergence once again, and no real sign yet of hidden bearish divergence. This confirmed 12 hours before the daily one. As I've talked about before, you love it when you see them sort of building from lower time frames to higher. So that still does remain encouraging. Now, when you look at the 4-hour chart, you can see that we're just chopping sideways, right? This is ranging. It's not really doing much. Yeah, it had this breakout, but there's just absolutely nothing to see here. This is absolutely untradeable in my opinion. So for now, I think we really just need to watch and see what Bitcoin does next. If you're a triangle trader, go back to that daily triangle. If it breaks above resistance, then you can start to think about getting long. If it goes below support, think about getting short. But otherwise, let's just see what happens on the way to 42,000 and when we eventually get there. Now, taking a quick look at Ethereum Bitcoin here on the daily chart, I've drawn this line resistance 1, 2, 3 touches, absolutely a confirmed resistance, and you can see that we're getting ready to approach it. That would be your signal, in my opinion, that this is likely to break. Now, what I like here is we had this huge move up. Volume sort of maximize here. There's a terrible candle with strong volume, but we're seeing decreasing volume as it consolidates. And once after a move up, if you have resistance and you see volume diminishing as you're consolidating, you would expect theoretically to break up. So I will be very, very carefully watching this line right here for Ethereum Bitcoin. And Ethereum on the USD chart, same kind of pattern we're seeing on almost every altcoin, these sort of weird inverse head and shoulders. To me right now, this is the key resistance. If it breaks, you can see that our targets would be back near the highs in the 4,000s, but that would require a really clean break on volume of this black line. Otherwise, we can just view this also as chopping sideways in a range. So not much to see unless Ethereum breaks out against Bitcoin, as I showed before, but for now, the markets are really hard to touch, but we do have these signals like MACD and RSI that things could be bottoming in all of these pairs. And we know that what's good for Bitcoin will generally be good for everything as a rising tide lifts all boats. Let's take a very quick look at the news. Bitcoin eyes second biggest monthly drop on record. If you didn't have a context as to how bad this month really has been, it's the second biggest monthly drop on record and only second so far, depending on the close tonight, to September 2011. There was nothing this bad in the 2018 bear market or 2019 or 2020. So it really is significant how much we've seen price drop. The 37.5% decline in May is beat only by September 2011's 40%. You can take a look at this chart right here and see how significant the other similar drops were. We did have 37% in November of 2018, 24.7% in March of 2020. Now that does not calculate the entire move from the top to the bottom. It's just how much from the monthly open to the monthly close of that month. But very important to notice, this has been a really ugly period for Bitcoin and one of the worst that we have experienced. In other news, Andreessen Horowitz' third crypto fund is in talks to raise $2 billion. This would be absolutely huge because it shows that Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the biggest VCs and funds in the game and well beyond crypto, is absolutely tripling down now on crypto, going for an absolutely massive raise, which means there's a lot of confidence still in institutional investors who are willing to give them $2 billion to buy more Bitcoin and to invest in the crypto space. So just know that the big boys who have a lot of money are not fearful here. And that has actually been somewhat confirmed with on-chain data. As we've talked before, it seems that retail who bought higher really were the ones who panic sold, and that whales have still been accumulating down at these levels. I tweeted something to this effect today. If you still believe that Bitcoin is going to be a 6-figure or a 7-figure asset, then you don't really need to worry about price action right now. You can panic and think, oh my God, it might go to 20, it might go to 10, it might go to 40. Who knows where it's going to go? But if you believe it's going to go to 250, 750, a million, then this is all one big opportunity to blindly dollar cost average with money that you can afford to put away for a very, very long time and not touch. And that's how people have acquired generational wealth since the beginning of markets, and nothing should be different here. You just have to be willing to experience the pain of seeing it drop further if that happens, in which case you should probably be buying more if your conviction does not change. And finally, no surprises here. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says he would still advise people to stay away from Bitcoin. JP Morgan is still largely moving into the crypto space along with Goldman Sachs and all of these other banks that testified in front of the Senate recently, but he is still just a mega bear who thinks it's backed by nothing. And to me, that is the most bullish thing we've got. When the big, rich assholes tell you that an asset that's a threat to their very livelihood is bad, it probably means that it's good for you. That is all the news and the charts that I've got for you today. There will be no live stream today because it is a holiday in the United States. So if you are in the US, enjoy your Memorial Day. Guys, check out everything in the description. My amazing sponsors, Femex, my newsletter. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and until tomorrow, peace.